Welcome to Operations and Supply Chain University. I'm Jerry Wright. In your Ops University Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt Certification course, this is lesson number 16, Kanban calculation. So Kanban calculation, here is the formula. Keep in mind a Kanban consists of two cards or two bins, and what that card or bin represents will vary. One card or bin is at the point of use being consumed. The other one is either in stock or being restocked or reordered. So there's always items in process. Total Kanban card size or quantities for one Kanban is this: usage per day times lead time in days times SF, or safety factor. Safety factor is used to buffer usage and lead time variability. We use 1.5 as a safety factor that represents 50% safety stock. Now, to determine the actual Kanban quantity based on safe handling weight, you need to see how many come in a box, how many in a bag, how many in a drum. Are they in a 55-gallon drum? Are they in a pallet? What's the case? We try to make Kanban a multiple of, a factor of, or the same size as supplier's bag, box, or quantity for purchased items. Now, keep in mind, Kanban sizes need to be checked or reviewed every 3 to 6 months. It's important to make sure you have a system for reviewing. Do they need to be made larger, made smaller? Do we need to discontinue something or add something else? So let's look at some examples for calculation. We'll do something simple like office supplies. So I've got pens. My unit of measure is a box. There's a dozen pens in a box, and my usage is 20 boxes a month. Paper, my unit of measure is reams. There's 500 sheets of paper to a ream, and my usage is 25 reams per month. And then staples, my unit of measure is a box. So I have 1,000 staples in a box, and my usage in this particular example is 150 boxes a month. Now I need to calculate daily usage from the above information. My pens, I have 20 boxes a month divided by, say, 20 days in a month. I need one box per day. Papers, 25 reams in a month divided by 20 days in a month. I need 1.25 reams per day. Staples, I have 150 boxes per month divided by 20 days. I need 7.5 boxes per day. Apparently, we're using a lot of staples. So the Kanban for a single bin calculation, assuming all the lead times are 5 days, is this. Pens is 1 times 5 times 1.5, or 7.5 boxes. Now, I can't order a half a box from Staples, Office Depot, or Corporate Express. I need to go up to at least 8 boxes. Paper, 1.25 reams per day times 5 days times 1.5 gives me 9 3/8, or 9.375 reams. I can't ask for 3/8 of a ream of paper. That's just not practical. They're going to go, I'm sorry, we need to sell in whole reams, sir. So I rounded up to 10 reams. Staples, 7.5 times 5 times 1.5, 56.25 boxes. I might as well round up. I could round up to 57, but I'm just going to go to 60 to make it easy. Remember, it'll self-manage because we've got our buffers in place. So that's how you calculate Kanban. What you're calculating for depends on what you're dealing with, but again, these are very simple, straightforward calculations. Now, people ask me sometimes, what if I have a demand spike? So here's my example. My average, I'm doing 700 a day. But I've got this huge spike, it looks like in March, and then again in July, and even a decent sized one in May, where I'm 3, 4, 5, 6 times my demand. Now, I could sell them everything I have, then I can't service another customer. That's not going to work. So how do you deal with this scenario? There's really only one effective way to do it. Whether you do Kanban or MRP is irrelevant. You need to call the customer, talk to them and say, hey, why do you want so much all at once? I can't fulfill that. I don't have enough stock to do that. Would you be okay with taking a partial delivery over the next several months? And they often will say, well, no, I don't want to pay for the extra shipping. And you could say, well, okay, let's negotiate that and figure it out. We'll pay for shipping and we'll still fill your order, but we're going to ship it over the next, say, 3 months or so. And often the customer, fine, as long as I don't have to pay for the shipping, I'm happy to have smaller deliveries more often. And that's really what we want to get to, is achieving the order, but not draining our inventory completely. Some people say, we just need to stock more. No, because then we don't know if that customer is going to come back and ask for that kind of quantity again. It's unknown. That's the unknown future. So we have to be careful. So again, demand management, talking to your customers, the only effective way to deal with spikes in demand, whether you run Kanban or you have material requirements planning in place. So calculation, let's say I want to calculate my Kanbans. I've got 52 weeks of usage. Now I have some very low usage and I have some very high usage. We'll decide if we want to include that or not. So again, 52 weeks, here are the calculations. So my top section, I've got 52 weeks, I've got 18,600 units total. You can see my mean or average is 358. My standard deviation or my variation from the average is pretty high at 244. And if I want to do a mean plus one standard deviation, that's 602. A mean or average plus two standard deviations at it's 846. My daily usage based on 5 days is 72, and my lead time based on working days is 7. So when I use a 1.5 safety factor and I do the Kanban calculation, remember our calculation is back up here. There it is. Usage per day times lead time per day times our safety factor. Okay, we did those calculations here. Now I get 751. Okay. Now, if I take out the high and the low data doing the exact same thing, I come up with 652. So the question comes is, what's the right Kanban size? Is it 751? Is it 652? I don't think so. That doesn't make sense. What's the standard packaging or pallet quantity? Let's say, in this example, it's 50 boxes per pallet. I definitely don't want to do 751 or 652. What am I going to do? Take a 750 and put one on the top of all the other ones and tape it down? That doesn't make any sense. So we need to do something that's in the 50 box, common denominator. The other thing is, how much does each part cost? Is it expensive or not expensive? Maybe that determines if I go higher or I go low. So you could use 650, 700, or 750. Any of those would be fine as a starting point. Now we talked about cost. Let's think about this a little bit more. Here's an example of the Kanban and how it runs from week 1 through week 23. You can see the usage. You can see how much I have in stock. And if you notice where the yellow is, I get kind of low, but I don't run out. And then I'm back up. And then I get low and then I'm back up because I'm getting my different reorder points and my replenishments. I'm always in good shape. But if you look at the lower right, if each item is $500 in stock, I've got $300,000 worth of inventory. If each item is only $50, then I only have $30,000 in inventory. And if it's 5, it'll only be $3,000. Again, we have to think about these things when you're developing Kanban. Now, keep in mind, Kanban is not a purely mathematical exercise. Yes, you're doing math, but it's not a mathematical exercise. You have to use common sense, logical quantities, and keep in mind that they can be adjusted or required or adjusted as required. That's what you want to think about in Kanban. Now, coming back to MRP, if you want to mitigate the challenges that MRP presents, this is what you have to do. I know this isn't ideal, but this is how you deal with it. You have to cycle count to make sure your inventory is correct pretty much forever. Now, that's a common thing. Most companies cycle count or do physical inventory counts to keep inventory accurate. That's just a reality. You have to scrub your bill of materials. So the part numbers and quantities in your bill of materials, you have to make sure those are accurate. And that goes on forever because you have new products, things get removed, constant bum scrubbing. You have to have good scrap reporting and scrap percentages. So again, you're going to do that forever. And then receiving, shipping, inventory, counting, improvement is all necessary all the time. Now, scanning, barcode scanning is recommended wherever possible. But here's the reality, and this is from the experts, the undisputed experts in material requirements planning. They wrote the book and the updated books on material requirements planning. They said replenishment. The best replenishment practice is replacement using barcode scanning or via a pull system, Kanban. Depending on the complexity of the product, planners can actually order materials using scanning with the min-max system. Again, min-max system, Kanban. So this is from Carol Tack and Chad Smith. They wrote the book. Now, Orlicky is the guy who invented material requirements planning back in 1964, so over 60 years ago. They've updated it since with Orlicky's tradition and foundation and whatever several times. The most recent version, 4th edition, came out in January of 2024. You can see it here. They've also written a book called Demand-Driven Material Requirements Planning, or DDMRP. Works great. It's decoupled DDMRP, which eliminates the forecasting or guessing and actually uses basically a form of electronic Kanban. Strongly recommend if you want to dig into this. These are great resources to look at. Again, we'll talk more about that in future lessons. Thank you.